Hello and welcome to my channel, ex.patient.adelle. My name is Adele and I'm a survivor of the troubled teen industry and broadly identify as a psych survivor. I'm checking in today with a video essay because I finally watched the Netflix documentary, The Program, and it gave me way more confidence to speak up about my experience. I know a lot of us feel like a wingnut when we try to broach these topics, and I'm very grateful to this documentary for setting the preface to this video. We're gonna go, it's kind of in three parts. It's gonna go into sort of my background, Ivy Ridge Academy versus Spring Ridge Academy, where I attended, and finally a message to my school. So, The Program, Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping is a 2024 documentary made by TTI survivor Catherine Kubler, and the Netflix tagline reads, "Years after being sent to a disciplinary school, a woman still haunted by her experiences exposes the corruption and abuse of the troubled teen industry." It's fantastic, it's disturbing, funny, and brave. The Program is a work in three parts: Where the Fuck Am I?, Mind Control, and Follow the Money. It gets into her visual memoir and the experiences of her friends while they were confined and rehabilitated as teenagers at Ivy Ridge Academy in New York. It explains the controversial experiential therapy seminars they attended, same ones I had to do, as well as a comprehensive breakdown of the corrupt, fraudulent, money-grubbing, cult-like, and incestuous organizational structure and history of the troubled teen industry. For example, the film explains how the Synanon rehab cult spawned this entire industry. She paid special attention to the genealogy of WASP schools. WASP stands for Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs. Sometimes it's WASPs with schools at the end, so she paid special attention to the genealogy of WASP schools, which is of special interest to me because my school was eerily WASP proximate. I attended Spring Ridge Academy in Mayer, Arizona for the latter half of 2005 and all of 2006. I was 17 and 18 years old, and it was 15 months. The founder of my school is Jeannie Courtney, a former LifeSpring seminar facilitator, ex-wife of David Gilchrist of LifeSpring Resource Realizations and WASP, and she worked at Cross Creek in Utah, a WASP program. These are all words that you will understand if you watch Kubler's documentary. I am happy to report that my school permanently closed in 2023 after 16 years in operation, and they were sued successfully over SRA's fraudulence in a jury trial. Further, the jury awarded the plaintiff $2.5 million in punitive damages. Unfortunately, some bonehead juror appears to have accessed the Troubled Teen Survivor Reddit prior to the jury verdict, and the court has allowed for a new trial. As they should, because this is America and we believe in a fair trial. I will say, I wish that my friends who got kicked out of their action training after they did their stretch dance were afforded the same courtesy. I wish they had a right to a new trial. It would have saved their parents a lot of money, as getting kicked out of a training inherently delayed one's graduation from SRA. The documentary wasn't entirely new information to me, both because I was sent to a somewhat similar program with more than similar values, and because in my 20s, I made a deliberate effort to connect with the survivor community. I paused the fireplace. With the survivor community, educated, informed adults. I first entered the world of the troubled teen industry survivors in 2014 when I attended the second or third Survivors of Institutional Abuse, or SIA, convention in New York City. Shout out to Jody Hobbs, the organizer and founder of SIA. I love you. This meeting of other survivors was wonderful for me because of the good-humored camaraderie shared by fellow treatment kids. We're all funny, exceptionally articulate, have a flair for the dramatic, and flock to nicotine and ibuprofen. Those of us lucky enough to have supportive parents still have to say, "Sure, Jan," from time to time. Throughout the conference, I was awash in realization. These are my people. We shared in the experience of trauma from abuse of totalistic power, harm, from the people who were supposedly helping us. Harm from forced adherence to their cult-like, non-evidence-based programs and pedagogy, all while being imprisoned in institutions. My internal dialogue the entire conference was, what do you mean? What do you mean they made you flap your arms for hours at a time and called it motivating? I had never heard of that. I had never thought about boys' schools, frankly. I felt like they wouldn't let you read books and they made you read the Bible every day. Like, wow. What do you mean they kept tackling you? This is unbelievable, and I believe every word. The conference was also my initiation into the etiquette we share with each other as survivors, and I learned quickly that while I had so much in common with these amazing people, my experience was somehow lighter and different, and it felt important to hold space for all my new friends who had it way worse. I asked myself, am I actually a survivor? And the answer is yes, and it's actually really important and politically prudent to call myself that. Me being a little shy about the word survivor is totally unhelpful to our movement. It's unhelpful, it's harmful to downplay my experience. It's harmful to generalize any part of it compared with other girls and trans men from my program. Similarly, it is harmful to ignore the differences between my program and Ivy Ridge, for example. Heightened abuse, a heartbreaking magnitude of physical violence, including student deaths, and schools' derelict conditions haunt many adult survivors today. And indeed, these are the living conditions of potentially thousands of children in America and worldwide in similar institutions. We all have different stories. Someone experiencing gay conversion therapy in a school or group singled out entirely for being gay is different than the gay conversion experienced by one girl singled out in a seemingly straight program population. But of course, they would have much in common. Similarly, another example is, I'm a white woman in America. So I got out of a total institution and experienced the freedom of driving around in my car completely differently than my black peers, to say the absolute least. I want to compare my program with Catherine Kubler's, with Ivy Ridge. The similarities between my program and Ivy Ridge are too many to mention, and that's in no small part because of the nearly identical cult-like seminars we attended. Let's talk about some differences between Spring Ridge and Ivy Ridge. We didn't do prone position for 8 hours. They weren't constantly tackling us and pinning us to the ground in restraints. If you stayed in bed, you would get physically pulled out and probably lose rights to your mattress, but I think the general campus culture was avoid this. But I know of several accounts of people being restrained and people losing their mattresses for extended periods of time, so who knows? We were not living in squalor. I don't recall random strip searches taking place after intake. Isolation typically was formal community shunning, but the girl wasn't physically removed from the community and held somewhere. We did have a solitary confinement room in the back of the med room, but if it was used, it was a prop, in my experience, for like a massive drama going on campus and not used as a regular thing. However, again, there are different accounts. We cleaned everything, but I don't think we cleaned the kitchen. I never did. But again, a different SRA alum might have cleaned the kitchen. I do not know. What I do know is that the punishment system would basically set up certain types of girls to become part-time campus servants, is the best I can describe it. If you were a girl who cussed a lot, you got a lot of loss of activity and work hours. During their weekend, these girls that were in trouble, during their weekend detention, which was a study hall, the rest of us would have the privilege of a small brown bag of homemade popcorn, and we could fill our water bottle with lemonade. It was delicious, I'm not gonna lie. We got to enjoy a PG or PG-13 movie down the hall while the girls in study hall could hear us faintly. Looking back, it is clear to me that this practice was needlessly mean-spirited. The popcorn was my favorite part of being there. The punishment and point system were a setup to begin with, and it wasn't until this documentary that it dawned on me that those billions of rules, literally hundreds of rules, were just a setup to fail and to keep us there longer. I genuinely spent the past, I'm gonna cry, I genuinely spent the past 20 years believing that they were just unethically strict. Meanwhile, like General Akbar says in Star Wars, it's a trap. Basically, when I think of Spring Ridge, we were not living under the threat of daily physical violence anywhere near the level of stories of programs like Straight Inc., Kids of North Jersey, Victory Christian Academy, the list goes on, and WASP schools, specifically Ivy Ridge as depicted in the documentary. Finally, Kubler's school was like 500 kids, maybe 250 girls, 250 boys separated. There was a lot of militarization and violence. They did military pivots to turn corners. My school averaged around 70 girls at any given time. There was a lot of simmering, insidious, cult-like attention to every detail about you. I am certain that this dynamic exists in all our schools, and I believe, perhaps, with differing intensity. There is a difference between 250 girls and 70 girls. In my life, for 15 months, my entire existence was monitored. Every inch we moved, every moment of expression, every day, scrutinized by absolutely every staffer, teacher, therapist, and most damaging, our peers, ourselves, socialized, brainwashed, to be snitches. Spring Ridge Academy was a panopticon of tattletales. I want to give a quick example. Let's say I'm in a line making the short outdoor walk from the Medina dorms to the cafeteria. Let's say someone in my group, a new girl, not brand new, red shirt, unibrow, a phase 2, blue shirt. She's feeling better about being there, but she still has to ask to come out of her room. That kind of girl. Let's call her Janet. So, every night on this walk, I see her glance at the sunset, and she has a little sigh. Now imagine how Janet's mother, who misses her very much, might picture her daughter in this moment. They always said, even though we're far apart, we're looking at the same sunset. Imagine how you would immediately weep, okay? With her little face aglow, a strong girl. Here's how that would go if I chose to seize this opportunity for my own gain in the program. All 70 of us are in a massive circle. It's feedback group. The whole community is there. And all the staff, community life directors, therapists who might be secretly unlicensed or less qualified than you would have thought, possibly even the founder or the clinical director. Some of these adults are even related. This group could go on for as long as the adults want, easily 3 hours. Here's how it would go. I raise my hand. I have feedback for Janet. I walk over to her. Maybe I kind of rush her, so I'm already right in front of her by the time she clambers out of her Crazy Creek camp chair. Janet, I have some feedback for you. I feel like we said something really stupid at this part that was like a kind of like in the documentary. My memory of it is that we would be like, rise, peasant, for thine feedback. And then the other student, like the peasant respondent, would be like, I rise for thee. Janet, I've noticed that on the walk to dinner every night, you're doing this thing where you're looking at the sun, and a couple of times it's even jammed up the line. My experience of you when you're doing this is that you seem wistful, and that leaves me wondering if you're like not present. My experience of you is that your mind is elsewhere, and thus you're not really working the program. You seem distracted. If Janet is like most people, she has a fear of public speaking. She knows that daydreaming about home is strictly not permitted. It would take a lot of courage and luck for her to get out of this, especially if one of the adults picked up on something I said or anything about how she looked while receiving this information. Imagine that this delays her ability to respond, right? I finished the blow with, "You seem distracted." And an adult cuts in and says, like a community life director, they might follow up immediately and say, "Janet, have you been feeling distracted?" Now Janet is juggling at least 7 threads of this discussion, all internally. But she can feel her face getting hot because all of this is making her think about her mom. All the while, she is, in reality, being held in this group and in this entire school against her will. Also, she's 14 and I'm 17. And let's add that she's dehydrated. This poor girl. Okay. Is there a world in which this nonsense gets worked out, where everyone realizes she's just missing her mom and it's healthy and normal? Yes. However, pretty much not without her crying and bubbling up in front of 70 plus people. And to not further, when she writes home tonight about this experience, she will edit. She will be unable to say, "And after all that, I still feel like this was really weird." So we have this obnoxious, forced misunderstanding packaged as evidence of something bad, brought to Janet and the entire community based on the actions of a garden variety SRA student who is working her program and giving people feedback. My character, the bully, does not have an education in psychology and has zero ability to become aware that she might actually be complicit in an institution-wide lack of ethics and lack of evidence-based care for adolescents. This can create a painful moral injury for the unwitting bully character in later life. When she is an adult, more likely informed about power imbalances, just like literally any adult with a bad manager or a bad customer. And you can see how, even in just 24 hours with sunset, feedback, feel better, write home, all the harm and stress of this day just compresses endlessly. I have been recovering from SRA for 20 years. It is disgusting, criminal violence to put anyone in prone position on a dirty floor. That is an emergency, and these places need to be raided. But what I hope you understand is that in one person's TTI experience, they couldn't look anywhere but forward and looking straight ahead while walking in a line. In my TTI experience, we could look around, within reason, when walking in our line. But in a therapeutic boarding school, freedom is fodder. It's fair game for scrutiny, with harmful and intimidating methods rooted directly in the history of attack therapy, and again, not rooted directly in evidence-based psychological care. One is an immediate emergency, like it needs a raid. The other is a slow-burning secret harm, which needs a federal commission for inspectors general who can send their people to go undercover and train as staff at these facilities. I hope this makes sense. I did not get restrained all the time, but to think to yourself, "Oh, okay, this is okay," is a dangerous mistake. A massive realization I had when watching the program was that everything about my school's marketing was genius. It successfully captured parents who genuinely did an excellent or good job researching. In fact, it triangulated the threat of other programs' violence as a way to bring parents closer to choosing my school. They wanted their customers to walk away knowing they are the best parents ever, because they're actually right. Some of these programs are bad, but we're good, and you're so good for finding us after all that hard work. Drop us a line, yeah. Let me bridge by saying this. I believe violence is inherent in confinement because we are human beings, a mammal more interdependent than ants. There is no absence of violence in confinement. There is only the diffusion of brute force. A diffusion into softer, stranger, more insidious forms. Imagine it like heating an ice cube in an enclosed kitchen pot. It might be a frozen, in this metaphor, the ice cube represents violence and harm, and the pot is the institution. It might be a frozen block of matter. If it's warmed, it may turn into a liquid, even a boiling one. It might even turn into an invisible evaporation vapor, but what it doesn't do is disappear into thin air, because there's a lid on it. If this is too dramatic, I have a flair for that. Let me put it differently. Imagine the ice cube is simply a bad idea that a random staff or therapist or prison guard has. That bad idea isn't going anywhere without the lid coming off, and there is an obvious, massive power disparity between those with the power to adjust the lid to let out the steam and those living involuntarily in the freezing, tepid, or boiling water. As for my school, they think they've done nothing wrong, despite the multitude of alums from 97 to 23 weighing in on message boards, at conferences, to news media journalists, and even at the trial itself in sworn testimony. They insist they only meant to help and heal us, even in the face of dozens on dozens of people identifying themselves as victims and survivors of abuse at SRA, profoundly inhibited in their post-program adult life. I know that this stuff is true because I lived it. I live it. My big sister, who was my program mentor, and the girl who whispered to me and played gently with my hair after the famous chair, towel, then collapse on the floor exercise, my sister, who was heralded as a high-level example of working the program, died within a year of graduating. She was drunk at the wheel in a high-speed car accident. And I remember, in my phase 4, about to graduate, parents already on campus, arriving on campus group, I made a bold move. I told Susie Courtney, the facilitator of that group, that I was upset. Happy about graduating, but kind of upset, because as a community, all of the, including all of the adults, we kept talking about a certain problematic girl. Meanwhile, uplifting literally all of my big sister's behaviors, literally in contrast. I specifically told the facilitator that I was worried that SRA had set my big sister up to fail. I remember the entire group was a bit stunned. And Susie, I remember the look of surprise on your face at my candor. We were in the corner room between the dorms, the one with the shelves of the videotapes for movie night. For months, I felt good about this memory because I was in integrity in making it. This memory's association changed the day I got that phone call. And you can pretend, if you want, that you've forgotten this. Knowing that my comments and her death seem to change absolutely nothing about your program, I pretend that you forgot too. I'm sorry. I'm going to end by giving some feedback directly to you and your family, and I'm going to do it exactly how you guys at Spring Ridge Academy taught me how to do it. First, some tough love. Jeannie, you are not a girl boss. You are a Karen. My experience of you is nothing like that of a psychologist nor a friend, and everything akin to that of an abusive large group awareness trainer. When you said in the trial that girls were thrilled about being blindfolded and rubbed with lotion, I felt embarrassed and angry. Embarrassed for you at your lack of self-consciousness. Angry with you because you do weird, unethical stuff in those seminars. Personally, I was not thrilled by that experience, nor was I thrilled when you guys taped me into a chair without my consent and forced me to break free. When you recount objectively provocative events in this manner, I feel concerned about your competence. My experience of you is that you are not taking accountability nor responsibility for the consequences of your actions. Your son, Brandon, is not someone to whom I would entrust my child. Brandon, when you take a selfie with your firearm and post this publicly to social media under your name, my experience is that's pretty imagey of you. When you post multiple times about breasts and breast size on your social media under your name, I feel retroactively paranoid and actively creeped out. And let me make this aside. You can have a sexuality. Fraser has a sexuality, but his obsessive grappling with ethics, expertise, and the appearance of impropriety is precisely what makes that show so funny. You display none of that. My experience is that all of you are deluded. Your entire program has a self-limiting belief, the belief that the program works. Anytime you brag about a program's success, all I hear is Michael Jackson's dad bragging that he can moonwalk. The first jury did not find your fraud defense authentic, and I agree. I know it hurts, but you're the ones who taught me that valid feedback can be found even in the harshest and most uncomfortable places. I hope you lose twice. What you have created at SRA is a mirror for your life, and your results prove your intention. You're corny and dangerous. And when John Oliver's team finds out about you and your entire industry, and he inevitably reads you for filth on national television, just know that I'll be here, loving, feeling safe in my home with my popcorn and my lemonade. Delicious.